And there I sit, just one Frightful and Mauser hunt away from my second 100% completion file of Enter the Gungeon. And then I realize, oh, wait, this game is 10 years old? Like today? Well, time to start over for footage. I'm gonna write the best love letter I can muster. Well, where do I start? Every part of this game is polished and full of charm, well thought out design, plenty of depth, and I could start talking about this game with almost any topic and go on for a while. For instance, I could easily start with the guns, where I'd talk about the hilarious ones or some of the ones with really cool designs, or maybe I start with the items in the game, from the ones with benign effects to items that change how you play the game altogether. And I could even discuss their combos and the depth in those alone. There's also the enemies in Gungeon, who are both charming and intimidating depending on who or what you find, and where you find them. And not last, but definitely not least, there's always the talk of the breach, the bosses. What do you mean you don't get that joke? Like, talk of the town? Talk of the breach? Wait, I haven't even talked about that, god damn. The bosses of Gungeon are the enemies that really bring the iconic bullet hell visuals you've seen from this game in trailers and flashy gameplay, which look almost artistic compared to the smattering of bullets in the standard rooms. And combine that with the designs of these bosses ranging from cool as hell, intimidating foes, to interesting and maybe funny takes on fantasy creatures, usually both, the bosses out of any aspect of this game are probably the thing you can go on and on about for a long time. And, actually last of course, you could always start with the Gungeoneers you play as, since that's the first thing you pick when you load the game, after all. But since we're going through this in as much depth as I could ever want to, how about we start with the tutorial? You know, chronological. The first thing this game introduces to the player once you enter the tutorial is, you know, flipping tables over to use as cover. That's cool, man. Just imagine for a second, making a game, and having one of the most used tropes in action movies as a basic mechanic. Like, I can't think of anything more common to demonstrate a character's coolness than like, this character is super cool, look at the sunglasses he has, of course he's cool. Or, this guy is walking away from an explosion, which are usually used together. And on top of being more unique than those two things, it's done really well here. There's no denying that putting something so bold like this in your game as a basic mechanic is hard to do well. And I guess you could say it's not done well or call it corny or whatever, but I just like to like things when they're cool, man. Who actually cares about people who get mad at you for enjoying things that mean something to you? I don't know. It's been a pet peeve of mine on the internet, but to spare you the time, and hopefully not alienate my audience, I won't talk about it for 15 minutes. And like, you are wrong when you say this isn't done well, but you can say it. And that's not all the depth this mechanic has either. Depending on the level you're in, the tables you use as cover change appearance and functionality. Maybe it's just a basic wood table, or maybe it's a more sturdy stone table. Maybe it's a coffin that spills out poison at your enemies. It feels great to use when often in this game you don't even remember you can use tables, just because all the chaos going on in the Gungeon. But really, that is one of the most minor mechanics in this game, and it alone has depth. Around the same time in the tutorial, you're taught to kick barrels, which can be full of various liquids, and can even be shot at to explode them, which can do various things, from, you know, literally exploding them, to the barrels shooting out some poison or water depending on the kind of barrel. But those are just auxiliary to the one thing that gives this game life. And yes, you've seen it everywhere since then, but this game came out 10 years ago, so I'm confident in saying that it was one of the first, or at least one of the first to do it in this way, and do it well. Of course, I'm talking about the dodge roll. Other than, you know, Dark Souls, I'm not sure dodge rolling in this capacity was really too common for another few years. And I think I like how the roll is implemented here maybe more than Dark Souls. First of all, it's explained to you, which is already better than Dark Souls, which just lets you figure it out. Fuck off. Which just lets you figure out how to dodge roll. Gungeon's dodge roll is actually pretty simple by comparison. There's no light, medium, or heavy equip load to worry about. It's just once you roll, you're instantly invincible from all forms of damage, even things like poison, which can't tick up during the roll. But once your character physically touches the ground during the second half of the animation, they are now vulnerable to damage, making it so you can't just spam roll to be invincible like you're almost able to in games like Dark Souls. In fact, It's not as essential as it is in games like Dark Souls either. It sure seems like it, and it definitely turns into an easy, albeit punishing, panic button at first. And your first attempts at the first floor boss will amount to you just going, oh shit, oh no, oh god, oh shit, how do I dodge? What is that? And just for a second, you might start to feel like this is one of those brute force hard games where you have to hack into the Pentagon every time you want to try the next boss. But, run after run, you slowly improve, and eventually, you'll start to see dodge rolling differently. One of the biggest realizations you can have while playing Gungeon is basically, oh hey, I can walk around those bullets. Or, oh hey, that boss has an opening to walk into there. And once you realize you don't always need to be dodging, the entire use case of one of your fundamental movement options is shifted in a very subtle, but deep way. See, dodge rolling takes away time from you shooting, and pushes you quite far in a direction. Not having to dodge is much better in terms of damage output and controlling the fight with your positioning and character's presence. So the dodge roll becomes a last resort, bailout defensive option instead of the omnipresent tool you use while weaving shots in between, like it turns into in other games with dodge rolls or other action games with the dodge move in general. And I haven't even talked about the items and what they can do to dodges, but that's a later thing. For now, we need to talk about the horrifying inhabitants of the Gungeon. I've taken great care so far to not jump scare you with these things yet, but I can only delay the horrors for so long when talking about a game such as this one. If you want to look away, I won't judge you. Just do so now. So, out of pure obligation, I'll show you what the ruthless and evil creatures of the Gungeon look like. Ugh, disgusting little things, aren't they? But dispatching them is fairly simple, even with a literal pea shooter? What the fuck? Well, even with a gun like this, it only takes 3 shots to kill these guys. No weak points, no headshots, just as simple and as satisfying as you can get. Just shoot the guys. And speaking of guys, there are a lot of types of bulletkin. The main species that inhabit the Gungeon. You got your simple bulletkin, shotgunkin, grenade and dynamitekin, and most of the basic kin have variants on top of that. For instance, the basic bulletkin has quite a few variants, one of which being the veteran bulletkin, who shoots more and tracks you, making them a lot more dangerous. Or there's an enemy like the bandana bulletkin, who shoots a constant stream of bullets, but he forgets to lead his shots, so you can just move out of the way. On top of these more basic enemies, there are more unique ones, like the gun nut, who uses his sword to shoot a large wave of bullets at you, or the shambling round? What is this thing? When you play Gungeon, you're unlikely to get bored of even just shooting the same basic bulletkin, but with the variety this game employs, the basic gameplay remains fresh even 10 years later, something most games would kill to have. But the gameplay itself is anything but basic. We haven't even talked about the really fun part. You see, Gungeon has, well, guns. It's the Gungeon. From the AK-47 to the bullet that shoots guns. Crazy concept, but it makes sense once you see it. This game has a whole range of weapons, with different kinds of shooting patterns, bullet spreads, and most have their own X factor and an auxiliary effect like freezing enemies, or being a lottery of different effects, or even just being funny, which makes for lots of combinations and kinds of guns. And the base game has enough guns to where you're never really feeling like you see the same guns every run. And that's not even the best part. The items are what really make it for me. You don't normally find any in the tutorial, but if you're observant, you'll realize that this path in the tutorial is a dead end. Kinda weird for it to be, right? Isn't this supposed to teach you something? You know, it being the tutorial? But then you realize this room dropped you a blank, and that wall there is cracked, so you use a blank and you find a couple items. These are really simple items. They just give you armor and a shield that blocks bullets as it orbits around you, but the thing they're used to highlight is how some rooms are not so visible at first, and require what is normally a very useful resource, that being the blank, a free on-demand screen clearing item to use. And on top of that, you might notice that this is a corpse. A corpse of who? Well, Manny, of course. The person leading you through the tutorial, Manny, actually died in the Gungeon, and from his former ally no less. And we discover this after the easiest boss fight of all time. But Manny tells us to kill Blockner, the one who betrayed him. But to find Blockner, we'll have to enter the Gungeon. So, As we exit the breach and fall into the first chamber, the Keep of the Lead Lord, you may be asking, okay, but what is Gungeon actually like? Well, the Gungeon has 5 chambers, or floors, just like a revolver. Wait, what do you mean, just like a revolver? As you go through the Gungeon, you'll run into many mini encounters with small groupings of enemies to clear. Once you've bested everyone, you'll choose a new room based on the paths presented to you. And repeat. There are rooms for shops, chests, or other non-combat things, and of course, a boss somewhere in each chamber. Basic dungeon crawler gameplay, right? Especially with the secret rooms from earlier, being hidden around and containing goodies, this game can really feel like a modern take on Wolfenstein at times, using what worked and adding things, making it into a more complete experience, while leaving out or reworking what made it the tedious game it can be. What do you mean there is a modern Wolfenstein? No, don't talk about that one. No, not that Wolfenstein. We don't talk about that Wolf. But of course, the Gungeon isn't going to get complacent once you get the hang of its strange ways. The gameplay remains fast-paced throughout each run, encouraging you to keep moving from one room to the next, which is accomplished in 2 ways. The first is just how Gungeon is designed. With the mechanics of Gungeon, once a room is cleared, you really have little reason to stay there unless an item is there. So, once you see the doors open and the map reappears to show you where you can go, it feels like the game is encouraging you to keep moving to get to the fun part. And, well, of course, you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep that music going. The music in Enter the Gungeon is one of the key components of this game feel, actually. At least for me. The music of Gungeon focuses heavily on rhythm and bass to keep you in a flow state. Its job more than anything is to be an amazing background piece and not to draw attention to itself. Because what it does is it redirects that attention back into the gameplay. And other chambers do this too, highlighting the more silly or off-putting nature of the chamber to further immerse you into the world and by proxy the gameplay. And the soundtrack can at times even introduce a melody that can really permeate the tones of the rest of the OST in a particularly tough chamber to really put you in the zone and create that sense of focus. And when it does this, and accomplishes it well, the music of Gungeon doesn't feel like the soundtrack for the game. It feels like your soundtrack, the one that's playing while you're on a journey to kill your past. And you know, I'm not saying the OST doesn't usually have a melody, most of the songs in this game do, but they're usually less piercing than the standout tracks I'm referring to, which to me helps create that dungeon crawling feel, like you don't have an exact clear path to go, and there's no guiding voice, but your drive to keep you pushing forward, which is communicated by the percussion, while the rest of the instruments help make it feel like, well, a gunfight. Of course, if you need a break, all you need to do is wait, and the music fades away into an ambience of the now empty rooms you've cleared out. Or, if you happen to find a shop, a more laid-back tune plays, with a very simple melody, some diegetic ambience, and lastly some light backing to give you a reprieve before you toss yourself ever deeper into the Gungeon. Naturally, we can't talk about the music of Gungeon and how it contributes to this game's flawless sense of flow without talking about the track that sticks with you when you play this game. Okay, maybe one of the 2 tracks that sticks with you, but you're not that far yet. Of course, it's none other than the boss battle theme. Nothing else in Gungeon builds you up for an encounter like the boss battle theme. When you walk into an arena and hear the music blare as your intimidating foe stands in front of you, the stakes are very clearly set. And unlike the rest of the Gungeon's enemies, the boss's attacks were designed in a vacuum, as in they were meant to be taken on alone, meaning they can throw whatever they want at you. In the rest of the chamber, enemies can shoot one, maybe a line of bullets, maybe something a bit more disruptive if they're a tougher enemy. But when it's one-on-one, they're pretty easy. Now, you walk into a room with, I don't know, the Bullet King? Every single thing he can do is meant to be a challenge on its own. Each attack, a test of your reaction time, or your spacing, or how you handle controlled chaos. The bosses keep the core gameplay of Gungeon, but mix up the flow at the same time. Of course, the Chamber 1 bosses aren't actually that hard, unless you believe what people say about the Gatling goal. But the music is emblematic of this design philosophy. Unlike the lower tones of most of the soundtrack, the boss theme retains something of a higher pitch once you're actually fighting the boss, making it less like a theme you hear when the all-powerful boss shows up, but a theme that nudges you along to be able to surmount the big hurdle in front of you. And after successfully dodging attack after attack, and firing back to kill the boss, you get a theme that itself is a play on the boss theme, but instead is more climactic and celebratory. Dozone really did a good job with the soundtrack. and I envy the skill it takes to create something so seamless you might not even notice what it's doing.
It's dose 1.
What?
It's dose 1.
No way. That's pronounced dose 1. Dozone rolls off the tongue so well. Why am I even listening to? I wrote this video! But music aside, even the designs of the rooms themselves lend well to being pins to knock down one after the other. Dodge Roll, the developers of Gungeon, took great care in designing every room to be replayable, especially since Gungeon wasn't even meant to be a roguelite originally. It just turned into one.
We never wanted to make a roguelike. Roguelike isn't like our top genre, you know? It was sort of a reaction to what we were seeing in the industry, so honestly, we were playing it as safe and as sweet as we could. Like, we obviously wanted to instill it with our life and everything, but we would have done something like make Super Meat Boy 2 if it was just left up to our own devices the first time around.
And in all honesty, that decision, however forced or unwanted it was, turned into one of Gungeon's greatest strengths. If the game was set in counters, the game would be easy enough to just master, and in turn be less replayable, because while you still can master Gungeon, it's a lot harder when you have to master the tight mechanics of the game, and not all the preset encounters it would have had. But they could have strayed too far, leaning more into random generation instead of handcrafted rooms.
We quickly realized that the game was going to be more fun and more fair if we hand-designed the rooms. We created a room and played it over and over again, and then structured floor layouts based on the rules that we think make good dungeon design.
And the care Dodge Roll took into making sure these rooms were as replayable as they turned out to be doesn't end here. It's present throughout the game, just like this game's inspirations are.
The biggest challenges for making a procedural dungeon are 1. Making it fun but fair, and 2. Making it have a sense of structure. I like to say that we try to teach our game to make Zelda dungeons. I don't think we quite hit that mark, but Zelda dungeons and the layouts of the Gungeon share various similarities in structure.
And I'm sorry, but when you say your game makes Zelda dungeons, that's one of the biggest compliments you can give a roguelite, honestly. Because when you play a good Zelda dungeon, that is some of the best design video games can offer, period. Gungeon even has the same small keys as Zelda, where you find a key, and it can be used on anything that takes a key. Only instead of using it on opening predetermined doors in Zelda, they're usually for chests in Gungeon, letting you get an item depending on the rarity of the chest you open. The rarity order being brown, blue, green, red, and black, from lowest to highest. And each chamber contains exactly 2 non-hidden, guaranteed chests. One with an item, and one with a gun. What was I talking about again? Oh, yeah, inspirations. The bosses in Gungeon are a pretty good example of this too, usually being a reference of some kind. I'm sure if you're into D&D, seeing these guys go across the screen right now is really cool. It is. How would you know? Nerd. But the boss designs in Gungeon are actually some of my favorites out of all the things in this game, and they can really easily steal the entire show. I particularly like the Treadnought. It's a pretty solid design, especially when it kind of seems like the design concept is just going all out with the guns. And the fight itself turns out to actually be really fun once you stop being afraid when 5 million bullets start flying at you. Another one of my favorites is the Old King, a secret boss that we'll talk about later. The kill pillars might also be the most solid main boss mechanically in Gungeon, with visually pleasing attacks that are a challenge to dodge with deceptive timing. Also, I just really like the Ammoconda, just because Snake. Killing a boss in Gungeon rewards you with an item or a gun, similar to a chest, which is a very simple reward, but probably the best choice. This game's item design could easily carry it if it was a sandbox game, so giving you a toy to play with will always be fun, and not making it some boss-exclusive reward showcases how good the items and guns are, that they could be rewards for bosses. But actually, my favorite thing about boss battles is what happens when you beat them hitless. Upon killing a boss without taking a single hit of damage, a second pedestal appears next to the one that normally contains your reward. And this one contains a master round, which is basically just a trophy with the added effect of increasing your health. At least until you drop it or sell it. $3? Are you kidding? And of course, after the boss of one chamber, you're put through to the next chamber. And you do this loop 5 times, each chamber having 1 of 3 bosses every time you enter it. And as you go deeper into the Gungeon, the enemies become more fierce and gain more health, with tougher variations in the later floors. And after enough runs, and enough time, you make it to the one boss of the 5th chamber, the High Dragon. The High Dragon might be one of the best final bosses in any game. Taking up the entire screen and being immovable is yet another great way that this game raises your stakes, especially when he climbs out of nowhere and has his own color for the boss intro. Each attack is overwhelming in its own unique way. Whether they make you do ricochet math in your head, or do a single, well-timed dodge, this fight is a test of everything the game has thrown at you up to this point. And if you're really good, you'll start to work him down. That is, until he's about to die. The game pulls out one last twist, and suddenly, the High Dragon is immune to all bullets. And speaking of bullets, do you see that wall of bullets heading towards you? It kinda seems like it's over, right? Well, it would be, if there wasn't one lone path through the wall. And I do mean one. Not even blanks clear the wall entirely. Right at the end, you're forced to hit well-timed dodges in exactly the way the game wants you to, as one final test. And once you do, you get a shot on the heart. Once it's all over, you go to one last room, an ethereal realm, where you find the one gun that can save you. Except, you have to shoot yourself? Well, here goes nothing. Wait, it's over? What about killing my past? Well, about that. Upon talking to Chamber 5's unique shopkeeper, the blacksmith, you'll find out that you need a special bullet for that gun, which is just named the gun, to take you to the past. Otherwise, you're just firing at yourself with a regular bullet. What did you think was gonna happen? To assemble the bullet that can kill the past, you're gonna need items from Chambers 2 through 5, and you're gonna have to bring them to the blacksmith in the forge. Specifically, you'll need the Prime Primer, which can be found in a shop in Chamber 2 for a high price, a bag of arcane gunpowder, found at the end of an invisible minecart track in the Black Powder Mine, a piece of planar lead, found at the end of a chasm in the Hollow, and last but not least, an obsidian shell casing, taken from the tooth of a vulnerable foe. Making the victory intentionally hollow until you assemble the bullet is a real stroke of genius, as the game makes you face unique challenges to grab the components, like not spending money, or not having an active item, or being able to cross gaps, or if you're cool, you use your shell casings to find the secret invisible path without having an item to get the item, or wait, I can write this better, or being able to use ingenuity to solve puzzles. And most importantly, the game tests you to make sure you're actually able to make it to the past, and it makes you prove your worth by killing the High Dragon for the shell casing. Once the bullet is assembled, you have infinity of them, and you can now use the gun, knowing fully you're on a mission to kill your past. Depending on your character, your past is different, ranging from killing an interdimensional horror to fighting a massive Imperial starship in your dinky little rocket. And this means that every character has their own final boss. Uh-oh, I gotta use this bullet on myself to correct this. The High Dragon might be one of the best final bosses in any— Final bosses? No, don't call it that. Stop, you're wrong. Shoo. Crisis averted. Anyway, Gungeon starts with 4 playable characters, all appealing to basic playstyles. Like the Marine, your basic starting character. He comes with a piece of armor, an extra hit that clears all bullets when triggered, and an active item that gives you a free ammo refill. And his starter gun is also one of the most consistent and solid in the game, tying into his faster reload speed and more accurate bullets. Or, there's a character like the Hunter, a character with a simple, kinda dinky little gun, but she has a crossbow for tougher enemies. And a dog that you can pet, oh my god, that can find items for you, giving you some much needed health or ammo when your situation is otherwise dire. There's also the Pilot, who's designed around tricking you into thinking he's a good character. You think his gun is good, but it just shoots wherever it wants to. And if you can't lockpick a chest, which is his main tool for getting better gear and becoming useful, you just can't open the chest. It's only a 50% chance, dude! And this game has another 4 Gungeoneers as well, which are all unlockable. But to talk about that, we're gonna have to talk about game progression. Gungeon has many ways it gives you to progress. The obvious one is what I just talked about, the bullet that lets you kill the past. Getting the good ending with every character is the most in-your-face progression this game has, down to giving you new skins for killing the past, and a new gun skin for each character by killing the past with their alt skin, giving you a reason to double kill the past, but making sure it doesn't get too tedious, as the reward is very small, and the requirement is just as much so. They could have easily made it you had to kill the past 10 or even 50 times, but I'm glad they didn't. The next way you're given to progress is one you can only encounter deep within the gungeon. Sometimes, the floor will generate what looks to be a prison cell. With a unique lock, regular keys can't open. The only thing that can open it is a special key placed on a random enemy, and usually it's placed on the boss of the chamber himself. The first NPC you'll be freeing on any playthrough of Enter the Gungeon is Cadence and Nox. And like every other NPC, they can't do anything for you right now, but meet them in the breach, or elsewhere in the Gungeon, and they can. Cadence and Nox specifically have their own room in the breach, where they sell you items to unlock for hegemony credits, which drop when killing a boss, or very rarely on a room clear. I seriously think this has only happened to me like once on my 100% playthrough I captured, and I'm not gonna make myself find the clip and put it here, but I will try. And here's the super rare thing that happened if I actually found it. But Cadence and Nox sell all sorts of guns and items, which we'll talk about in just a second. Other NPCs you unlock this way include more shopkeepers that actually appear in the Gungeon, much like the main one, but with their own pools of items. There's also more quest givers like Freifel and Mauser, who make you hunt various Gungeon enemies for H credits and items. Or there are NPCs like the Ledge Goblin, who you rescue for her to just hang out in the breach. But if you kick your helmet down back into the Gungeon, she has to go get it again, and has to be saved again. And you can do this a few times until she chains her helmet down so you can't kick it, at which point she unlocks an item for you. And last but not least, after quite a few runs, Taylor appears, and he helps you build shortcuts directly from the breach to the deeper floors of the Gungeon, for a price. Think Tunnel Man from Spelunky. You give a few bombs, or usually in this case, keys and money, and he'll build you a shortcut, as long as you have given him the previous chamber's master round, ensuring you've at least somewhat mastered what you're skipping. Oh, and speaking of unlockable items, wait, did anyone say anything about unlockable items? No? Why did I even write? One of the main appeals of Gungeon is its insane item and gun pool, and its combos and synergies. So why don't I go through some of it? One thing you're gonna realize when you play this game though, is that it has references, man. Seriously, here's just a snippet of items or guns that directly reference something, and not just take inspiration. Doom, real life Nerf guns, Zelda, Zelda again, Zelda a third time, Earthbound, multiple and many real guns, Hyperlight Drifter, Punch-Out, Warhammer 40k, a poem called Jabberwocky. Apparently this is famous. Am I just not read up on classic poems? It's where the word chortle comes from, I guess. Anyway, James Bond, Marty Robbins, Clint Eastwood, Shovel Knight, Goner, Terminator, Snakes on a Plane, Star Wars like 50 times, Mass Effect, Lion King, some game nobody ever played, Shadow Warrior 2013, twice. Wait, 3 times? What? Titanic, Nuclear Throne, Titan Souls, pretty much every Metal Gear game out at the time, Counter-Strike, Blade Runner, Halo, Dead Space, Bayonetta, Mega Man, Metroid, Tetris, Mario, Resident Evil, Dragon Ball, Super Meat Boy, Ghostbusters, Stardew Valley, Fallout, Pokemon, The Matrix, Dark Souls, Terraria, Payday, Super Hot, which is how you know the devs are cool. This game is full of Dungeons & Dragons references, from the enemies to the bosses to the items. It also has 15 anime references I probably don't even know about. There's a reference to the concept of pay-to-win games, fucking Soundgarden, and that's just what I wanted to list. Even the original items all have their own charm and personality, and there are lots of things in here that are just general concepts, like ninja items or the ballot item, literally increasing a hidden stat called coolness, because the devs are just cool like that, I guess. The only thing I will say is that this game has way too many fucking chest rings. Chest ring of vampirism, or friendship, or mimic friendship, or whatever the next one is fucking called. It's the one thing I still consult the wiki for, because like, man, why did you make 15 of these things? Now though, I believe we're ready to talk about those 4 unlockable Gungeoneers you can play as. Let's start with the simplest one, that being the robot. After unlocking the shortcut to the second chamber of the game, and returning to the place you completed the shortcut, you'll see an active item, the busted television. It doesn't do anything but get discarded when you use it, and when you roll, it drops itself. So what are you meant to do with it? Well, you have to bring it all the way to the forge, or the 5th chamber. And if you roll and leave it behind, it'll get stolen by the resourceful rat, another NPC who steals items you leave unattended. That's the less bad fate, honestly, because it's possible to roll it or throw it into a pit where nobody gets it. That's the only reason you can throw it, is to throw it over potentially required gaps, which, for the record, is the most stressful thing anyone has ever done. But if you bring it to the blacksmith in the 5th chamber, she'll repair it, and you'll unlock the robot. The robot is unique, because while yes, he has a past, he actually has no health, just armor. He can't even pick up health, he just won't interact with it. Even items that give you health just give money as compensation, making every hit you take as him way worse, because it's a lot more valuable. To make up for this, he's capable of an amazing damage output from the start, with his active item letting him spill water, and his passive item electrifying that water, which basically melts the first boss, unless it's the Bullet King because he's immune since he's on that little throne. On top of this, the robot gets a permanent damage boost for every piece of junk he picks up, which is what drops most of the time when you destroy a chest instead of opening it, leading to a double or even triple damage output if you're keeping this in mind and optimizing for it. Anyway, let's unlock our next character, the Bullet. To do this, you're just gonna have to get lucky a few times. See, when playing Gungeon, any regular Bulletkin has a very low chance to get replaced by a red-caped one, who doesn't fire at you. And if you don't fire back, eventually he'll despawn. And once you do this 5 times, you'll have the Bullet, who's honestly just the best character. His weapon isn't even a gun, it's a sword. But not just any sword, it's blasphemy. Here's one of the Zelda references I was talking about. A sword that when its user is at full health, shoots a rainbow projectile. On its own, this sword could be pretty good. It actually one-shots Bulletkin when you hit them with the swing and the projectile. But it's made insane because of its other innate ability. When you swing, or shine your sword by using the reload button, bullets immediately in front of you are nullified. Not only does this make this approaching enemies a breeze, but it also makes everything a breeze. Having trouble with a boss's attack? What attack? The Bullet is incentivized to stay as close as possible to enemies at all times if he wants to maximize his damage output, and he can use his sword to do so. And with the damage output of this thing, Blasphemy is viable through a full run, as long as you're at full health. Bullet is the ultimate glass cannon, because even if he has the same 3 hearts as everyone else, no he doesn't, he's useless at anything but full health, making armor or healing items a must if you're not comfortable with his kit. And the Bullet's no contact damage passive item is yet another reason to lean into this playstyle. Plus, this item comes with increased rolling damage too, letting you do a one-shot combo on most non-major enemies. Bullet really is the best. Plus, his alt skin is just the #1 in the game, and it's not even close, don't even. Going back to the robot for a second, he's actually a really good choice if you want to access the oubliette. Wait, you don't know what that is? Well, let's start with how to get there. In the Keep of the Lead Lord, or the first level in Gungeon, one room will always spawn with a fireplace in it. If you put out this fire with one of the guaranteed water barrels that spawn on this floor, a weapon that shoots water, or the robot's coolant leak active item, you could head inside and flip a secret switch, opening a secret room, containing just one grate that's locked, requiring 2 keys to open, and upon opening it, you fall in, discovering the first of Gungeon's many secret hidden chambers. The oubliette is odd, full of mutant enemies, and weird liquid barrels everywhere. It's a fun chamber, alright. And it's an easy way to make money at the cost of some early items you'll get back upon killing the chamber boss. Just like normal chambers, secret chambers have bosses too. Only the secret boss is predetermined. And the boss of this one is the Blobulord, the 4-star ranked general of the Blobulan army, an invasive species to the Gungeon. This chamber also contains the Old Crest, which just seems like a piece of armor with a unique appearance, as taking damage with it doesn't actually do anything a normal piece of armor wouldn't. That is, until you bring it to another, guaranteed, normally useless room in Chamber 2, where you can place it upon the altar, leading to the second of many secret chambers in the Gungeon. The Abbey of the True Gun is probably the hardest chamber in the Gungeon, and it's not close. This chamber features many enemies that normally don't appear until Chamber 4 or later, and on top of that, it features jammed enemies as a commonplace spawn, not influenced by curse like it normally is. Jammed rounds are special, cursed enemies that do double damage to your health, and have higher health pools themselves, meant to balance items that would otherwise be too powerful. Like for instance, Spice. The first hit of Spice? Really good. It increases your health, speed, damage. Seems like a really good trade-off for a little bit of Curse. But then, it starts appearing in more places, even when it's not supposed to. And the second hit is similar, more health, damage, and you're even quicker. But after the third hit, you still get your speed and damage, but it starts to hurt. And it keeps showing up, so you keep using it. And you're going so fast that you can't even think, and you get so many instances of Spice that your curse attracts the Lord of the Jammed. And he's ever present from now on, never leaving, even in shops, making the shopkeep evacuate. Bosses become jammed too, and once you die, you'll be asked. You've met a terrible fate, haven't you? Where was I? What? Oh yeah, the Abbey. The boss of this already difficult chamber is the previously mentioned Old King. And this one is just a much harder version of the Bullet King. Was the simple ring of bullets too easy? Well, how about a ring of jam bullets? With special ultra fuck you bullets that are put there specifically to catch rolls in the wrong spot. This boss is listed as a demigod in its description, and that couldn't be more apt compared to the baby regular Bullet King. The regular Bullet King can do a very simple, easily strafed attack if you're standing diagonal to him. Pretty simple, right? What does the Old King have instead? Well, it's similar, but it's really quick and the spread is much larger with many more bullets. This continues into every attack. Controlled chaos in the regular King fight? Well, now it's just chaos. A simple arena control Molotov? You mean an arena covering Molotov, right? The Old King has a couple new attacks too, like an orb of jammed bullets that follows you. This boss is easily my worst boss, and it's not even close, by the way. This boss also has a massive health bar proportional to the challenge it offers to the player, making this not only a challenge of skill, but endurance if you aren't able to shred bosses with your usually incomplete build at this point in the run. And I could claim that this is unfair or unbalanced, but it is interesting, fun, and a very nice challenge for the chamber where not getting hit for an entire chamber prior is an entry requirement. These aren't the only secret chambers and bosses in the gungeon, but we'll talk about those as they come up. Moving on, let's talk about the Paradox. Unlocking the Paradox is interesting. The only way to do it is to mysteriously find this space-like texture on the ground and interact with it, whereupon it absorbs you. And that's step 1 of 2. What's step 2? Oh, just beat the game on that run. Yeah, that's it. Beating the game while paradoxified unlocks the Paradox. And that weird unlock method is just the tip of the iceberg. This is one of 2 characters that cost Hegemony carrots? Oh my god, I'm turning into a rabbit, dude. This is one of the 2 characters that cost Hegemony credits to play, being 5 credits himself. And the Paradox starts with a random starting gun and a random other gun, as well as 1 passive item, also chosen at random. The Paradox also doesn't have a past. Why even play this character then, one might ask? Well, other than just a gamble, which is always fun, I don't care what anybody says, he's actually the only method to unlock the second secret Gungeoneer. As well as the Paradox, you'll need to have killed the 4 main Gungeoneer's pasts. And all you need to do is, you guessed it, beat the game. And upon heading up the stairs to the gun, well, this happens. And you get taken to the 6th chamber, Bullet Hell. Get it? Like Bullet Hell? The genre of the game. See, the alternate joke there would have been it being the 6th chamber of the revolver, like a callback to earlier, but I didn't think people would understand, so instead I'm explaining the joke because we all know that's when a joke is the funniest. But as long as you have the 4 main pasts killed, anyone can access Bullet Hell. The Paradox just has special business here. Bullet Hell has no chests or shops. It's just one room after the other, filled with brutal enemies unique to this chamber that cause chaos wherever they stride. And without a shop to buy heals at, and this being the longest chamber in the game, it's one long test of consistency. And the final boss embodies this too. He's called the Lich. He's the true lord of the gungeon, and he's not going to go down without a fight. His attacks are almost Machiavellian in nature, shooting rings of bullets precisely spaced to catch you in the next one if you roll directly through, instead making you time a deceptively hard dodge to the side to avoid this fate, or one lightning-fast bullet that homes in from the side, which has the same animation as a large wall of bullets, requiring both opposite yet equally quick actions to dodge. And once it's over, you get taken to the first boss with a true Phase 2, right as you think you've won. Phase 2 Lich is up there in terms of difficulty for different reasons. Instead of clear-to-read attacks that are precise and difficult, this monster is throwing his weight at you in every sense but the literal one, causing chaos with bullets that disappear or ones that coat the screen and require precise movement to dodge. Thankfully, since the Lich is exposed, this phase has very low health, and once he's dead, you get faked out again into a third and final phase. This is when the Lich's true power is revealed. He's not some adept gunslinger, nor a hulking beast. He's made out of shell casings and bullets. He's able to shoot thousands of bullets at will, and use them to corner you in a thin slice of the arena, making you execute precise dodges. Or he'll shoot lightning-fast throws of bullets and move at an incredibly quick speed, testing your timing in yet another way, all while being hard to hit. This boss is a true test of everything you faced up to this point with these phases. And once the Paradox has bested him, you get to use the gun that can kill the past on him. Except... Now, as the Gunslinger, the second Secret Gungeoneer, you have one attempt to beat the game with this character you've never used before. Or, you have to do it all over again. That sounds hard, right? Well, it is, but thankfully, the Gunslinger has a pretty good passive item. The Lich's Eye Bullets is a passive item, and gives every gun you pick up as the Slinger every synergy it can have, making basically anything you pick up a powerhouse. Even his starting gun is really solid, and has a very fast fire rate if you manually fire the bullets. And at the end of the clip, he literally slings his gun and gets a new one, hence the name. The Gunslinger, though, also has no past, but unlike the Paradox, he still has a past to kill. Talking to the blacksmith for a bullet, she says she's never been happier to make a bullet for the Slinger, and upon using the bullet on yourself, you're taken to bullet hell? Well, I guess we better kill the Lich again. But instead of the normal Lich boss, when you enter the arena, there's actually two Liches, one being a Paradox. Paradox bosses act independently of the original, and shoot cursed bullets. The thing the Gunslinger is here to kill, the Gungeon. He's here to undo the past, and what brought the Lich into existence, hence the Paradox Lich. And killing the glitched Lich achieves this goal, unlocking the Gunslinger, and a unique ending. And while I love the Lich, he's the least hidden of Gungeon's 3 true final bosses. And to fight the second, we're gonna have to start a new run. In the Gungeon proper, the second chamber of the game, there's a suspiciously expensive key that replaces the Prime Primer once it's brought to the blacksmith in the forge. You can't buy it outright, but over many runs, you can make payments on it, eventually bringing it down to just barely affordable if you don't spend any money prior, or pretty affordable if you go to the oubliette. This key, as stated in its description, unlocks something. What does it unlock? Well, in the Black Powder Mine, or third chamber of the game, if you kick enough dust up in just the right random spot, you'll find a hatch of some kind, unlocked with a regular key. It seems to be an unfinished part of the mine, just a long railroad track to nowhere. But if you're smart, curious, or even just press the blank button on accident, you'll discover a secret room that contains nothing. No, the real secret is behind this room, in which a large grate has a special lock on it, unlocked by, well, let's just say something. And here we are, to the 4th of 5 secret chambers I've talked about, the Resourceful Rat's lair. See, if you've been playing long enough to get here, that rat is a thorn in your side, stealing your items, impersonating shopkeep, and even stealing items in chests, making sure you waste keys. Unfortunately for the rat, his calling card he uses when he steals a chest item will be his downfall, as he's left clues for his otherwise unsolvable maze in them. Those being cheeses facing in a certain direction, pointing you to the correct route. And once you make it through this maze filled with messed up challenges, you get a restock room. That's how you know things are gonna be bad, by the way, when there's a restock room. The rat is just evil. His attacks are deceptively hard, ranging from ultra-fast kunai to another dodge in the wrong direction and you'll get hit attack. But they're unique, and feel uniquely challenging, like a trickster magician trying to keep his secrets hidden. And like that magician, the rat can be foiled. But as you might have guessed, it's not over. We follow him down this time, and now he has a mech. Attacks become more, how can we make the most overwhelming attack ever still be manageable? Like screen-wide circles that zone in on you if you stay in one for too long, or lots and lots of rockets, or a million enemies just because. That's just the lead up to the real star of the show though, which happens when you kill him here. Instead of him dying and you getting rewards, you just straight up have a boxing match to see who's the true winner, without their guns, except the two they always have. You can dodge, duck, and block here, and gain a super move if you hit the rat at times when he'd be most vulnerable. And this phase has 3 phases, all being unique and harder than the last, with more attacks, longer attacks, and more precise attacks. You get items and keys depending on how well you do here, which, whether you win or not, can be used to unlock the motherlode of loot in the following room. This is the only phase in any Gungeon boss you can lose and still get rewarded, which is pretty cool honestly. I think the devs understood that the shift in gameplay might be difficult for some people, and you still get a reward for making it this far. This boss is unlike anything in Gungeon, and that's completely on purpose. It's meant to be a test on that oft not tested, and at that it does amazingly, and is still a challenge, even if I usually do him hitless or only getting hit once these days. I want to talk about the rat a bit more when it's relevant later, so trust me, this isn't all I have to say. Also in the rat's hoard room, behind yet another secret wall and 2 special rat keys, is a starved dragon. The only way to interact with the dragon is to feed it items or guns. Or, you know, the rat himself. Anyway, upon feeding this dragon 4 things, he'll follow you and block bullets. And that's nice and all, up until you make it to the High Dragon, where he suddenly leaves you and joins his side. Being a dragon, I guess it makes sense though. He fires bullets at you occasionally, which can really mess you up if you aren't watching for it and actively controlling your muscle memory. But the fight goes on mostly as normal, until the ending part with the heart, where instead, this happens. This is the Advanced Dragon. Everything the High Dragon tests is suddenly brought to another level, with a whole new health bar. Attacks are clusters and clusters of bullets, all only manageable if you know how to weave movement and dodges perfectly to dance around the bullets. But they somehow look deceptively similar to previous ones, which triggers your muscle memory only to see that there are more bullets, at a slightly different speed, which means you'll roll directly into them. Or, previously manageable enemies become extra major hindrances. The Advanced Dragon even puts down fields that nullify your bullets, disallowing you from shooting. This is the true final test. As for a guaranteed encounter, you must beat the rat first. And what a final test it is, even taking the climactic end sequence and adding dead ends to make it that much harder. This boss is a paragon of taking challenge to its limits. And it's beautiful watching someone who knows what they're doing dismantle this boss, when it would probably dismantle you. Oh, we should probably talk about that, huh? How do you not run into these bosses and just die over and over? How is Gungeon balanced? Because if you ask most people, they'll tell you that this game is hard, but I don't think I've ever heard it be called unfair. And while that could be chalked up to the deterministic nature of bullet hells, I don't think that's the whole story. But I'm far from the first person to talk about this. So just for a second, let's turn to another game. Spelunky is very similar to Gungeon in a lot of ways, both being very tough, neatly packaged games. And its designer, Derek Yu, has spoken on this design philosophy. As he calls it, spiky design.
I think spiky games are often thought of as punishing, but to me the difficulty, while it's an important part of the design ethos, is in service of the goal rather than the goal itself. The real goal is to put the player in a state of focus about the game and to really care about what they're doing at any given moment. It's to make them feel the world existed before they arrived and that will exist after they leave, to make it feel real. Winning or finishing the game, in my opinion, is not the main goal of a spiky game, even if that's ultimately what you're working towards.
Spiky games aren't just difficult to be difficult, but instead, the difficulty is meant to create a feeling in the player other than just, wow, this is really hard. In fact, Derek Yu compares the difficulty of a spicy game to the heat of spicy food, to explain why someone might enjoy a difficult game like Dark Souls, or in this case, Gungeon.
It can be hard for people who don't like spicy food to understand why spicy food fans love it so much. If you're just starting out on your spicy food journey, you can't taste the flavor, just the heat and the pain. Similarly, spiky games generate a lot of enthusiasm from their fans, but for people who aren't there yet, they can just seem hard. The difficulty is only one part of the equation. It's the heat part of spicy food. I don't eat spicy food to feel pain, but the pain wakes me up, and is the gateway to interesting flavors that you can't find anywhere else. The flavor is what makes spicy food good, and it gets easier and easier to withstand the heat the more you experience it.
Now, I can't say the people over at Dodge Roll looked at the Anaconda and thought of it as spicy food, but I do think they employed similar design philosophies, because this game's difficulty isn't the reason it exists. Gungeon isn't like Kaizo Mario. It's not meant to be hard for hard's sake. The difficulty is meant to create a feeling of focus in the player. It's meant to give Gungeon its feeling as the place that's been around for thousands, if not millions of years, and some newbie isn't going to come around and decimate it. But this also makes victory all the more rewarding, after spending however much time you need to be able to run through the Gungeon like it's just another day. In fact, there's a feat for this that's more than just beating the game, or beating the Lich, and it's called the 10-Chamber Run. The 10-Chamber Run is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a challenge run of Gungeon, where you go through and complete all the requirements you would need to do in order to find and beat every chamber Gungeon has to offer, all in one continuous run. And this run is hard, don't get me wrong, but it's not hard for the reason you may think at first. Sure, getting through to the chambers on any run can be pretty tough. Maybe you don't have anything high DPS for killing Old King, or maybe you don't have a gun that's particularly well suited for phase 2 of the Resourceful Rat. But you could almost always fall back on your starter gun in a scenario like that. And if you can use your starting gun effectively, it's almost like you don't even need any of these other guns. Even if they are, fun, cool, feel good to use all around, and what make the game amazing, if getting a particularly good gun or item combo isn't what makes the run hard, what does? Well, for me, and from what I've seen, the hard part is actually getting to each chamber. Now, that may sound the same as bosses or enemies being hard, but that's not quite what I mean. See, you're smart. You remember how to enter the first 2 secret chambers of the Gungeon, right? For the Oubliette, you need 2 keys. Okay, you start each run with 1, and the shop is guaranteed to have at least 1 key, so you'll always be able to enter the Oubliette. But unless you get lucky with pretty uncommon random key drops, that means you won't be finding any chests on this floor. And even if you do have the extra keys, unless you have 2 or 3, you still shouldn't use them, because the old crest in the Oubliette can sometimes be locked behind a key door. So unless you want to be spending all of your money, and you don't, you should save any extra keys you get. And then, after all that, if you want to go to the Abbey with the old crest, you still need to do enough a Chamber 2 hit list to get to the crest room. And getting more armor after picking the crest up won't save you. They make sure that the crest will be the first to go if you get hit. Oh, and remember that key that costs an absurd amount of money? Yeah, if you want to go to the Rat's Lair, what would be Chamber 6 out of 10 on this run, you're going to need to save enough money to buy it. Which means, especially if you were buying keys, you are not allowed to buy anything else you might need from the shop. And to access the Rat's Lair, if you remember, you need 2 blinks. Do you see what they're doing here? Just in the first half of the run, they're taking away your resources used to make the game more manageable if you want the true accomplishment of the 10-chamber run. No keys, no taking damage, no spending money, no using blanks. At each point in the run, you're challenged on playing without a specific tool. And this is tested further for the last secret chamber, which I haven't even talked about. In the Hollow, Chamber 7 out of 10 on this run, there's a guaranteed spawn of the Cell Creep, a normally rare NPC that you can sell guns and items to. He takes everything you give him, but you might notice some usually valuable items returning a low price, like the Master Chamber, which as a reminder is a reward for killing a boss hitless, but it only gives you 3 casings. Weird. And if you happen to give him 2 other things on top of this Master round, he'll leave and provide an entrance to our 8th chamber, the RNG department. Unlike every other chamber in the Gungeon, The RNG department actually has the exact same layout every time. Kinda ironic, isn't it? And its boss is the Cell Creep, or as he's really known, Aghanim. Also, he's voiced by fucking Cam Clark, which is pretty funny. This is one of my favorite Metal Gear references in this game. Fighting Aghanim with Liquid Snake yelling at me about killing his past is just peak gaming, honestly. But in order to access here, you need to get a Master Chamber, which means hitlessing a main chamber boss on this already difficult run, since the secret chambers don't give out Master Chambers. And since the bosses only get harder, that usually means hitlessing the first boss with nothing but your starting gear, which is pretty tough. Well, unless you're playing the Bullet and get the Bullet King. Dude is the #1 usurper of all time because you can just lock the boss in place and nullify all his attacks. The Bullet is really cool. Remember when I talked about assembling the bullet that can kill the past earlier? How each bullet component is tested on a skill, like not spending money or not having an active item? This is the same thing, just taken to its logical limit. The nod key is obviously the most direct comparison, both being in literally the same spot, just not at the same time. But killing the High Dragon to get the shell casing is replaced by hitlessing a boss, and other comparisons could be drawn, like instead of not being able to use an active item, not being able to afford or unlock any items. And the best part? This challenge is completely optional, so they could make it as hard as they wanted. This is one of the few things you don't get an item or cosmetic difference in the Breach for, but it's definitely designed to be possible, as one final challenge the Gungeon can give you before you master it. Which is an extreme level of detail I don't even expect from games, but games that do it come out so much better for the love and passion they show. And while I've seen many a game that show it, I have not seen a single one that shows as much as Enter the Gungeon. But to truly show that, we have to talk about the other half of the game. See, I can talk about gameplay and design all I want, but if we don't engage with the lore at least a little bit, you're only getting half the experience. Most of Gungeon's lore is right here in the Ammonomicon, accessible in the pause menu or by simply hitting I. Pretty much all of the lore about the items, enemies, and people in the Gungeon that isn't dialogue related is here. Now, if you've been on the internet in the last 5 years with Dark Souls and Souls-likes blowing up, or being more popular than they were, at least, you might already be tired of this. Oh yeah, gather every item in existence and read every item description, and you'll find Bob's hat tells you Bob fell down the stairs as a kid and that's why he betrays you later in the story. No, while Gungeon can do that sometimes, it doesn't rely on that for the big set pieces. The really useful stuff is usually either an NPC dialogue or environmental storytelling. Dark Souls lore is cool and all, but sometimes it really struggles to feel like a world without the chosen undead, or the bearer of the curse, or whatever the player character will be called in Elden Ring 4, scourge of this game's poorly designed final boss. The Gungeon didn't always exist. In the Bullet's past, you play in an area just called Dungeon, as shown by his victory screen. The Gungeon just used to be a regular dungeon that happened to be filled with many kinds of creatures, from the Bulletkin to the Gungerers. But one day, the Great Bullet struck, instantly trapping everyone in the Gungeon, unless they use the bullet that can kill the past to go back and never enter the Gungeon. Back when the Great Bullet was still new, materials for the bullet were plenty, and many people left, which also allowed the legend of the Gungeon to spread, a place where you can go to fix your mistakes, to kill your past. But what most people don't realize is that they can never leave the Gungeon until they've killed their past, and if you enter without the skills to do so, well, you're just stuck forever. That's how most of the NPCs found themselves in the Gungeon, either being adventurers who stumbled into the wrong place, or characters that you can speculate motivations for, even with surprisingly little to go off of. My personal favorite character is the Drunkard, a character that can easily blend in and most people won't even talk to once, or they'll talk to him and get pointed to the tutorial. But as you kill bosses, you'll realize this guy knows basically everything about the Gungeon, but because he couldn't kill his past, he's been here for untold centuries. He has things to say about the Old King. He knows the true identity of the Shadow Magician, one of the mini bosses we'll get to later. He's seen the Kill Pillars transform into Caliber, goddess of bullets and guns. And when you kill the Lich, he begs you to stop tormenting him with stories. And when you kill the Advanced Dragon, he asks why you continue to come back, like you yearn for the Gungeon even after you've killed your past many times. And perhaps most interestingly, he knows that the Gunslinger is also the Lich, as when you talk to him as Slinger, he talks about finally leaving the gungeon. But hold on, that's stuff you don't even know about mostly. Let's start before the bullet hit. Again, in the Bullets Past. While the Bullets Past is mostly just one big Legend of Zelda reference, it's still real lore. The Bullets Past is all about failing to stop a usurper from taking over the gungeon, that being Ganon and his henchman, Aghanim. While in the Bullets Past you get to stop this, in reality the bullet was too cowardly to stop Aghanim, and the Old King was dethroned by Ganon, as seen on the Ammonomicon, which is why the Old King is sealed away in the Abbey, and after Ganon came the Bullet King we know now. Not all of Gungeon's enemies are native, though. The Blobulons and their variations aren't. In fact, they were once a great empire, the Blobulord's 4-star rank general title literally meaning he's devoured 4 stars. But the rest of the Blobulon Empire has died off, leaving the last trace of them in the Gungeon. And Aghanim being imprisoned is why he's a boss in the RNG department. That's why he's letting you sell things to him. He's trying to gather power. The Shadow Magician mini-boss has Aghanim's exact moveset from the Bullets Past, and is controlled by an unseen master. This description is genuinely so short that if you don't know what it's referring to, it's kind of unnerving, and it's really well done. And I've saved perhaps the most interesting things about the Gungeon for last. The Lich and the Great Bullet. As I've already stated, the Lich is really Slinger, the first person to ever master the Gungeon. However, when the Great Bullet struck, it killed Slinger, turning him into the Lich. Although, when you complete a run by killing the Lich, you shoot him with the Great Bullet, which gets sent back in time, also killing Slinger, and thereby creating the Lich. This is why Slinger fights a Paradox Lich in his past, because by killing the Lich before he became the Lich, he is undoing his very being to undo the Gungeon. But the Gunslinger is also the one who made the Gungeon in the first place, before the Great Bullet, and before any of its rulers. The Gunslinger is also a wizard, and he was worried that guns might make magic useless. Most of the veteran inhabitants of the Gungeon knew Slinger, like the blacksmith or Cadence and Nox. Even items and guns that are references to other games are amazingly weaved into the story in an interesting and still very lighthearted way, somehow, being both a thing to laugh at but also read about and be compelled by. Every reference in this game is so well done, and even though I went over them earlier, I could do another one of those sections easily, and I still wouldn't be close to naming them all. This game is built upon the shoulders of giants, and the fact that it pays respect to them and doesn't pretend it's above anything just makes the whole experience sincere and nice, and most importantly, more fun. It's fun to get lost in this silly world when the way you interact with it is mainly the amazing gameplay, and immersing yourself in its story just enhances that. My favorite example of this, I think, is what they did with the resourceful rat. When I talked about him earlier, I intentionally excluded how chock full of references this fight is. Phase 2 is literally just a Metal Gear Rex from Metal Gear Solid. Phase 3 is literally just Punch-Out with the timer from a fight in the same vein as Metal Gear Solid still. Even his death monologue is just a Star Wars reference. And you might say, wow, what an uninspired character. But for a character whose whole thing is he's resourceful and he steals whatever he can, it honestly feels like he's stolen all this stuff in like a meta sense where he knows that it's not his. It's really good characterization, even if it's unintentional, and he might be one of my favorite characters for it. Another cool thing about this game and engaging with it are the item synergies, which I haven't talked about enough. There are so many you can't even really remember them all without some serious time in the game. The Mega Hand alone has 6, referencing Mega Man's different guns he can use in his games. There are thematic ones like the Glass Cannon, a weapon that breaks when you take damage, being more powerful with other glass items that do the same thing, or 2 things that let you unlock things without keys working well together. There are ones like a really stupid but funny Pokemon reference where the AK-47 has an island form you can only get by picking up an orange, like how Pokemon got new forms starting in Gen 7. Or insane ones that require 6 guns or lots of items that are just a real treat when you get them. And the theming in this game is amazing. The way that everything is twisted and made into a gun pun is just delightful. The game really is just so nice. Oh yeah, and there's a synergy called https://merch.devolverdigital.com with the microtransaction gun, and that's just so funny. My favorite synergy is with the Betrayer's Shield though. It has a synergy with an item you can only get in one place. In the Abbey, there's a secret room that always spawns with a minor NPC which basically just gives you a free chest with a little joke about how he can't know the truth and asks some silly questions. If you destroy this chest though, instead of dropping junk or maybe even an item, it drops a special version of junk called Lies, and with the Betrayer's Shield, these items synergize, turning this thing into a fast-firing monster with infinite ammo. And the funny thing is, this is Blockner's gun. The Rat has an infinite ammo gun too. All the used-to-be Gungeoneers do, although Manny's is unused. That's one of the many tiny details this game has. Just like the secret's so secret, they don't even need to be found for 100%. Like the other rare NPCs found in hidden rooms with a lower than 1% chance of spawning, as if you'd find them at all. Or this eye room you very rarely get when using one specific item. Doesn't do anything, it's just meant to creep you out. The only one I've actually gotten, and gotten use out of, is the glitched chest, which has a 1 in 1,000 chance of spawning to replace any chest, and in all my time playing, I've only gotten it once, although I'm pretty unlucky. When you interact with it, it takes you to a special version of Chamber 2, with only one room, where you fight. Well, it's just 2 beholsters, but man, that is a little creepy when this game is otherwise very polished. Arguably, this is done in a very polished way too. It's a hard fight, but once you do it, you get the best reward you could ever want. Then there are the ones so rare I haven't even found them, like the High Dragonfire room, which permanently upgrades Dragonfire into a better version on your save file. There's actually one recorded instance of someone getting this room and the chest being glitched, which is kind of insane. These tiny little secrets have so much love in them, and they're just so nice. It's also nice you don't need them for 100%, because wow, imagine grinding for these stupid low chances. I'm so glad they thought of that. Well, I've talked your ear off about this game, no doubt. But I really feel like I could keep gushing and revisiting all these topics and diving into the details I originally left out for your sake. And in fact, I have added quite a few things in that exact way, and I could easily add another hour to this video doing that again. Like how the Paradox Lich theme has its own take on the boss theme that's iconic by the point you're playing in the game, and it adds lyrics that are really well done. Not to mention the lyrics of the actual credits theme. It's done especially well as what could be your final challenge in the Gungeon. But honestly, you could go play Gungeon and find those for yourself. I don't want this to be one of those videos where you watch and you go, well, she talked about it, I can just move on with my life. I want you to think about this game later, and I want you to play it, or reinstall it just for another run, for old time's sake. I didn't even get to talk about the mods. That's something I haven't touched, even if I definitely should. At the very least, I hope this gets you excited for Enter the Gungeon 2. Wishlisted on Steam, maybe. I've played this game for 10 years now, and I can't help but get reminded of Spelunky, a game I like so much it was literally my username for half a decade. And while Spelunky is a much neater experience, that not being a negative, Gungeon has so much more to offer in terms of mechanical depth and replay value, and new things to discover after hundreds of runs. I've 100%ed this game 3 times in the last 4 months, and I kinda wanna do it a 4th. When you unlock the finished gun after getting everything else and see it say, "Thanks for playing," it actually makes me tear up a bit. The love I have for this game really cannot be expressed in words. I hope the fact that I made a video about it like this will show just a bit of that love. Because the way you feel after hundreds of hours of runs of intense, high-octane killing, shooting, and dodging is really amazing. It's fun, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But the peace I feel in my soul reading the finished gun's item description gives me a satisfaction that's rarely matched by anything in this world. Because when I read it, I know I've mastered the boss's geometric patterns. This game's chaos just becomes a playground, and it doesn't stop being fun. Even when its hardest challenge is a casual run. When the world feels like it's not made for me, I oddly find a sense of belonging when I'm playing Gungeon. The chaotic, unsafe hells of the Gungeon feel like they'd be almost the last place someone could belong. But after marrying the chaos and feeling it, I've found that this is exactly where I need to be. The game isn't afraid to challenge you, to make you get frustrated, and it lets you reflect and realize you have a long way to go before you can beat the Gungeon. It has so many optional challenges and run modifiers and different ways to play the game, like rainbow runs or enchanted runs. This game has endless opportunities for challenge runs, Even just beating it the first time is such a fun journey, when that's far from the whole journey this game can take you on. There's so much to unlock, and the rewards for killing the advanced dragon, both in the lobby and item-wise, feels so good to see. Which, when you compare it to a game like Spelunky, where you only get shortcuts, and I guess small journal entries, it really feels like just an upgrade to my favorite things about my other favorite games. It's honestly a wonder it took me so long to make this video. I stumbled into being right around the 10th anniversary when I got back into Gungeon again, and I knew I had to do something this time. Even something like the 10-chamber run in Gungeon is related to Spelunky's chain you have to do for a hell run. And while it might not have taken direct inspiration, it just feels like a great evolution of the mechanic. Just like the dodge roll feels like an idealized version of Dark Souls. Just like the bullet hell gameplay feels like a genius evolution of bullet hell games like Ikaruga or Touhou. Touhou? Don't get mad at me in the comments. Just like the hundreds of items feel like an amazing compendium of ideas, and it's the best take on a roguelite system I've seen. And just like how the game is unwavering in what it is, down to the music, the sprite art, the controls, and the story. And though it took a hell of a long time, it really helped me come into my own, and it inspired me to even be a fraction as confident in myself as the Gungeon is in itself. Gungeon is its own master round in game design, the height of what can be accomplished. The Gungeon never denies you resources. Instead, it simply insists that you become better. My question is, what is your experience with Gungeon gonna be like? After all, the Gungeon never changes. It's waiting for you. So what are you gonna do to answer its call? Gungeon may be a game about regrets. In the end, you may want to kill your past to make everything right. But if I was in Gungeon, I wouldn't have a past. I don't regret one single second I've spent with this game. I love it with all my heart. And every time I go back, something beautiful will always be waiting to try and kill me.